like you said, those of you who were there yesterday, you saw that the second topmost bureaucrat of the country who deals with CSR in the government of India was here, the Joint Secretary. Okay. And all of you are leaders of not-for-profit organizations in this country. And these 3 days are basically trying to also get your buy-in. Okay. So the way we have kind of the format or the methodology of this conclave is very participatory, which I said. And I think today onwards, we would like to also have you interact and be a part of this knowledge creation process that we're doing. So that, you're not just here in terms of, signing on the attendance sheet, but when you leave, I think each one of you should say that, okay, I added value to this conclave. I have ownership over this conclave.
We are sorry again because we are starting a little late. Typically, Indian sort of stretchable time. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start very, very shortly. Just want to give, to supplement my colleague and my friend what he just said. So we're starting off with a corporate pack. So India Incorporated, lessons, best practices. What can they share with us since the last 4 years? What has gone right with partnerships at the implementation level? What has gone wrong? What could be general principles as best practices to adopt particularly for all of you, because you're doing the implementation, and what could be certain things to avoid? So this kind of an occasion is very rare for all of you, because all of us are in our operational framework, right, including the senior heads of CSR departments. Now, little time we have for leisure when we can actually sit back and reflect. We are constantly sort of running this, it's like a firefighting operation. So I think we have a nice gathering here. We have some of the most prominent heads of CSR, and I really have the good fortune to have 2 heads of the Jindal Group. Brigadier Rajiv William, who is the head of CSR of Jindal Stainless, based out of Delhi, Brigadier William, if I'm correct. A seasoned army man, of course, and then, of course, being in the development sector, as you said, for the last 15 years. And Ashwini Saxena, who is the Chief Operating Officer of the JSW, of the eldest brother, right, of Sajjan Jindal. Yeah, so second, right? So, but the biggest group company, right? The biggest group company based out of Bombay. So both of them, Ashwini has actually specially flown in from Bombay. And then, of course, we have Akshata Shukla, who is in the CSR department as a senior manager in Asian Paints. So this is going to be a fantastic sterling session, and to complement Shobhitra Chakrabarti, who is the CEO of a CSR and sustainability consulting firm called Finnovation. I've had the pleasure of meeting Shobhitra and interacting with him at our campus, and the wealth of experience as a consultant that he has accumulated of looking at public-private sector operations, it's phenomenal. So therefore we all get together, we have a discussion, we take your inputs as potential implementation partners, and we all learn from each other. And that, as Rohan says, that is the basic goal. The basic goal is to learn from each other, to develop a learning community, a community of learners. So this is not the end, this is not the beginning. This is just first step number 1, right? So you've been learning, I've been learning, all of us have been learning, but then we continue. So we developed this platform, and 2 universities have come together to develop this dialogue. So with that, no ado, we start this discussion. Okay. So,
Bigly has this.
okay.
Very, very warm welcome to each one of you to this ASDI Western Conclave for Building CSR Partnerships. Correction couldn't come from regulation, or even from self-remediation. And Adam Smith himself foresaw that business would address this flaw. It should be clearly understood One can do well by doing good. Doing it smartly, we do better. So why not be the trendsetter?
They do not feel that change can happen by someone else. They believe that I am the change.
We really congratulate the government of Maharashtra for setting up this initiative at your meeting, and I wish all success. And I assure you that this seriously and will partner with you in any way in which we can make a better evening.
For development, we need the government, corporates and NGOs to collaborate, and this is an excellent forum to bring them all together.
I'm so glad that Mr. Gorge's point this morning was all about sustainability, not just about social responsibility as being Kramvikas or CSR from that perspective.
What is the larger context in which this whole CSR and sustainability must be located? Larger context.
What I really like here is the corporates, NGOs and the passions out there, and we were all basically able to objectively talk about the issues, the challenges and the roadmap ahead for how CSR can actually shape the country for I think this idea for Conclave is a great idea because mostly the services to be funded by corporate partners, but that's a traditional, there's exchange of experiences, there's exchange of how to do stuff, how to do it better, exchange of good practices.
Hello. Yeah. So once again, a warm welcome to our guests who are coming from different directions. I really appreciate this. You're sharing your experiences with us as two academic institutions, and also largely the developmental professionals who are sitting in front of you are numbering up to 50. So what I'm going to do is, the way that I'm going to run the panel is that you're four. So we have roughly about 45 minutes to an hour or so. So I have about 5 rapid fire questions, and all focusing on partnerships. And so each question we will deliberate for about 10 to 15 minutes. And obviously each one of you will speak then for about 4 to 5 minutes. And then 4 minutes maybe to give your points. The 1 minute you summarize. And we all take notes. And then later on in the debriefing session, we all sort of share notes with each other. And we develop a learning. So the first question that I'd like to ask this esteemed panel, who've been running and heading CSR operations and designing CSR operations in the respective jurisdictions. So हम जो पूछ रहे हैं कि यहाँ पे जो हमारे पैनल हैं, ये तो सब हेड कर रहे हैं अपनी अपनी operations, अपनी अपनी jurisdictions में. तो कभी मैं अंग्रेजी में बात करूँगा, कभी मैं हिंदी में बात करूँगा, ये combination में हम चलाएंगे ये panel discussion. तो दोनों ही हमारी राष्ट्रीय भाषा है, तो हम दोनों में ही बात करेंगे. So the first question that I wanted to ask each one of you, and we start with Brigadier Raja Williams, and then of course in that sequence, is briefly if you could describe your CSR operations, the scale of your operations, and roughly the amount of spend for the last annual year. So, Brigadier Williams.
Thank you. Firstly, thank you for calling me here. It's nice to speak to a different environment because I'm not sure who all are participating. हमने कुछ लोगों को तो जानते हैं, कुछ लोगों को नहीं जानते हैं. But roughly, I presume it's corporates would be the least, I suppose, here, if there are any more corporations here. Otherwise, it would be basically the development sector, the NGOs who are here, which really links to the partnerships. And for partnerships, we've got to, as you rightly said, a bit about our operations, because partnerships are more focused around the project areas that we have. Partnerships can also develop in terms of the larger organizations who are supposedly credible and who are visible on the map as compared to some smaller ones who are not visible on the map, but they may be even more credible. So I want to talk about that piece, but that leads me on to sharing the Jindal Stainless Limited group of companies, the CSR of which and sustainability I head, are focusing around our projects, around our plant locations. And therefore I must share with you our plant locations are essentially in Hisar, that's the mother plant of the entire Jindal group, is where Jindal Strip started off, and then of course divided into four brothers, four sons and four brothers, four different groups. We have of course Ashwini from JSW and myself from JSR, two are being represented from the Jindal group itself, the Open Jindal group. So we've got one plant in Hisar. We've got another with the largest integrated stainless steel, essentially stainless steel, and that's it. Integrated stainless steel plant in Jajpur, in Kalinga Nagar, that is in Odisha. आप लोग कोई उड़ीसा के हैं यहाँ पे? Right. And of course, in Visakhapatnam, where we've got, next to Visakhapatnam, between Visakhapatnam and Vizianagara, we've got another plant of ferroalloys. And besides that, we've got smaller plants around the Delhi NCR region. In Rohad, that's near Rohtak, and another one ahead of Manesar, where we've got Jindal architecture. So all the claddings you see, all that is in the metros, that's being developed by Jindal architecture. Ardenox is the high-end fancy stainless steel art galleries, and of course what you actually have in lifestyle products. And our company of course manufactures flat stainless steel sheets of different sizes. So our CSR work is around our project locations, our plant locations. And we perforce, because the manufacturing sector, have to engage in a number of areas. So it's not the liberty of, or the luxury I should say, of some of the other service sector industries which can only focus on education, only focus on health, or only focus depending on your business. But in manufacturing sector you have to address a number of issues simultaneously. So whether it's education, it's health, women empowerment, community development, to do with rural development, to do with environment, and of course human rights, which we have really championed, and offline we can talk. Those not part of the 13 listed activities in the Companies Act 2013, but there are bits of human rights in every domain that you touch upon, whether it's to do with women rights, child rights, education rights, RTI, the works. So I think I'll stop over there, because I can carry on telling you exactly what we are doing, but that's not the intent. The intent is see where we can develop synergies for partnerships. Some of you guys may be in the area of Haryana, which may be of good sense. We've got partners, but there are always scope for new partnerships. So let me just share with you some of our contacts become live maybe after 5 years, even after 10 years. I've contacted them. I said, we did speak. That time we were not doing this, now we're looking at it. Let's take for solid waste management. Yesterday a guy came. I mean, there's things like that. So it remains at the back of our minds, and you never know whom you connect with. It may be tomorrow, or it may be after 5 years. Thank you.
और ये this is a very significant point. ये बड़ा महत्वपूर्ण point बता रहे हैं Brigadier Williams कि this partnership development is a long process, a relationship-based process. So this is very important. I mean, it doesn't happen right now. So turning to Ashwini, so JSW, the scale, the kind of depth of operations, and also the amount of spend. I mean, just to give an idea.
Good morning, everyone. JSW is a very diversified group in a sense. We are into steel, and when we talk about steel, we talk about all the architectural elements like rods and plates, etc. And then we are also pioneering into coated steel sheets. Wherever you go and see those beautiful colored red and blue sheets, those are JSW steel sheets. Then we are now also entering into steel furniture. That's another one which is growing up. The other biggest company for us is the energy. So we are both into thermal power stations as well as into hydroelectric stations. Incidentally, JSW is the biggest contributor to hydroelectric power in the country. So we have 3 power stations in Himachal, and they supply to the whole of Haryana, Himachal, parts of Rajasthan and Delhi NCR. So in a sense, that's the kind of a contribution we make to the power of this country. Then we have also diversified it to cement, paints and infrastructure. So in a sense, the entire construction industry kind of gets addressed by us through steel, cement and paints. Right now we are into industrial paints because that's going to contribute to the coated steel sheets, but I think at some point of time there is a lot of appetite to go into commercial, not just commercial paints but even household paints. And the next thing which the whole group is quite excited about is the electric car, where both steel and our understanding of energy can be combined together. So that's another horizon that we're looking at. In terms of JSW Foundation, as I mentioned, this entire landscape, we are across about 10 states at this moment, and with some more acquisitions coming our way, I think we'll be present in 12 states. So 12 states, about 22 locations. We reach out to about 1 million people. About 1 lakh of children in Vijayanagar itself, gets served through midday meals on a daily basis. So for us, the sectoral spread is quite huge, I would say. And as very rightly pointed out by Brigadier Williams, you can't just pick and choose one particular thing to touch upon, because human life is about so many things. So as I said a few days back also at some place, we've tried to evolve our CSR programs as per the needs of the communities, because for perpetuity they are our neighbors, and as a good neighbor it's important for us to to align our offerings, I may use the word, to their requirements. So the girl who was malnourished has been taken care of through a malnourishment program. As she graduates and turns into an adolescent girl, has completed her 10th standard, doesn't want to move out of the village but still is looking for a job, maybe a rural BPO can fit in there. Her education is being taken care of, she gets into livelihoods. Water and environment is an all-encompassing theme, so that's something which we do in a very big way. We partner with PSAT across the entire country for doing this work. We're partnering with NABARD across the entire country to see, can we take up tribal development, can we take watershed development, can we look at livelihoods. So, since you're talking about amount of spend, I think it's above 100 crores last year. For last 2 years, we've been having a budget of more than 100 crores. It's going to shoot up in the coming years. So we are trying to work out frameworks by which we can sustain some of our programs and also have more appetite for more strategic programs.
So as each speaker goes, I would summarize in about half a minute. So you're already important, you have the point here. As Brigadier Williams just said, that they get into multiple kind of constituencies, multiple projects. एक के ऊपर एक CSR project, एक CSR area. So there, as you know, there are about 10, 11 different areas in Schedule 7. We talked about that. So depending on the needs assessment, depending on the community that they are basically serving and they're close to, jahan needs hai, wahan, so their CSR projects get focused. So
just wanted to highlight, one
absolutely.
point. It's not a one-time need assessment which you do in one go, when you start a 3-year program. The engagement of, and this is where I think, sometimes partnerships are very strategic kind of things for us, because the overall team, which looks after CSR across all these 22 locations, put together as a team of about 150 people on the rolls, and another 200 odd, through various kind of arrangements. So these 200 odd people are there on their foot, engaging with the communities in the villages on a regular basis. So they are knowing on a daily basis what's going on in people's lives, and picking up lessons as to how they can fine tune. So typically for us, it's a diagnostic, as I call it. It's not needs assessment. It's a diagnostic which keeps on continuing every day, and every time when we engage with people at the locations, the questions are what's going on and what needs to be defined, what can be done better. So every day there is an evolution taking place.
So Ashita?
Yeah.
Again, the scale of your CSR operations, the breadth that you cover across the country, and the impact. Very, very briefly.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So morning everyone. Thank you for having me here. Today I'm representing Asian Paints. a big thank you to Mr. Saxena and Mr. Williams, because I think they have covered most of what I was about to speak, since they are also a manufacturing firm. So a very quick brief of Asian Paints. As you know that mainly the major portion of 80% of the business is around decorative paints, which are the wall paints. Then we've got joint ventures with the industrial paint giant, which is PPG. So we've got PPG, AP and APPG. And it's in past 4-5 years that Asian Paints has also entered into bath fitting and kitchen fittings. So that's a very quick cover of what the company does. Coming to CSR part of it, so when the CSR started 4-5 years back, especially like with these companies that coming in, that's when CSR properly started inside the company. Before that, definitely promoters were doing their health and education bit in the locations they wanted to do. Structure-wise, it came definitely with Companies Act. So at that point in time, there was a quad team formed at a very senior management level, what companies should do. So what we realized is that it has to be a mix of something which only the community needs, at the same time something which is a shared value creation, which would actually benefit the company back also, in a way. So out of the entire discussion that happened, the 4 areas that have come across, where then the areas that we are working in for a couple of years are education and health, which are primarily the needs of all the communities across any state, any location. So definitely around our manufacturing locations, everywhere we are working on education and health agenda. In that, there are a plethora of activities that we are doing, and it's a complete learning curve. Like I say that we are handling CSR, but honestly speaking, we are learning CSR. There's new learning every day. We tweak our programs, change our programs. There are a lot of changes which happen year-on-year basis. Then the other 2 areas that we are in and which are slightly related to our work, one is water management. Since we are a paint manufacturing company, water is essential for our sustenance itself. So across the manufacturing locations, again, there's huge work happening in the water recharge, wherein we are working both on the surface and the groundwater. And again, I said, like, it's a learning curve. So with water, somewhere we are also taken to agriculture also, although it's not related to our work at all, but for the sustenance of the structures, for kind of developing the community, making them have higher productivity, we are getting into agricultural space also, which was not the thought at the first place when we started the entire CSR piece. And our flagship program that I would say, and where we have expertise, is painter development. There we are pan-India present. So we have a program called Color Academy, which we run through 3 models: fixed academies, mobile and hypermobile. So fixed are the shop kind of structure, which are generally 2-story structure across, and a few cases it's 1 story, where we have theory and practical classes running simultaneously. Apart from that, for locations where we can't have fixed academies and they're remote locations, there we have the mobile and the hypermobile vans going. So mobile is definitely the bigger trucks, and hypermobile are even the sleek trucks that can go even in very underprivileged area where the roads are very narrow, especially designed for Mumbai underprivileged areas. So this is kind of the overall kitty that we are looking at, the 4 areas. Coming to the presence of it, so water, health and education, as I said, are around our manufacturing locations, which currently we have 9 decorative manufacturing plants. So around that main work is happening. It's the last 2 years that we start focusing around our office areas also, because somewhere the work around manufacturing location is stabilized. So now we have the time and bandwidth to also look around the sales locations and the head office area. So that's where we are starting now. And Color Academy as a concept is pan-India. So wherever we have our sales offices, Color Academy is running. So currently we are in around 32 locations. So in a way, our CSR coverage is pan-India. And now coming to the spend part of it. So last year it was around 47 crores that we had spent. This year somewhere we are looking at close to 60 crores as the budgets. Towards then, sometimes it spills over, sometimes it's mostly it spills over, and fingers crossed that we are not left with any. So that's the thing. Anything?
Excellent. This is very nice,
Thank you.
Ishita. Thank you very much. Brady Williams, if you could just comment very briefly on the impact that you make and on the spend that your group
Right.
does. Yeah.
I
mean, impact.
Firstly, can I just reflect on something that
Sure.
Ishita has said?
Absolutely.
On the shared value piece? I think there's a lot of debate that is happening on the corporate shared value. And it's of interest to all of us sitting over here. I think we need to really Google a little more on that and then debate it, because we've had discussions on the fors and against it. Okay, yes, coming back to the spend piece, I'll just touch upon. Our spend for the entire group that we are talking about, including architecture and our Ardenox and JSL and JSHL, major groups that we've got, is touching approximately 40 crores.
40 crores.
And obviously is going to be increasing, as you rightly mentioned, but I think it's not the question of the amount that we really talk about. It's the impact that you are making on the community that you are operating in. And I think that's more critical. So when I can't talk about millions of lives being touched, or I can't talk about huge numbers of being impacted, but definitely I can say that where the impact is there, it is huge, and there's a huge quality. And it's not just now that we are talking about around our plant locations, which stretches the areas of influence, areas of interest, areas of influence, are beyond our immediate plant locations, but in the state, in a couple of districts around, and of course, I'm talking about all the support that we've got is touching approximately 40. And the impact, we have, of course, the third-party impact assessment being carried out, and it's year-on activities. So there is an SROI also, which for us as of now wasn't very good, but because it's a greenfield, from a greenfield to brownfield project, there are a lot of challenges, and therefore we've touched almost about 1 is to 2.6 is the ratio of the SRO and social return on investment. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Brigadier Williams. एक और एक significant point यहाँ पे हम देख रहे हैं, and that is the beauty of this panel. All three of them are in the manufacturing sector, and we all see one commonality is that first of all, their CSR operations are quite close to the plant locations. Am I correct?
Yeah.
With that?
Yes.
The second commonality that we see, that they tend to focus on specific sectors depending on the needs. Am I correct on that? So Asian Paints, for example, clearly Akshita mentioned that their focus has been education, their focus has been health, but they are diversifying. They are diversifying into skills development, for example. So what the third principle we would like to bring on from here, from this discussion, हम लोग जो देख रहे हैं, हमारे जो पैटर्न से, जो responses जो दे रहे हैं, कि they may start off with 1 or 2 areas of concentration, but they can diversify over the years into different areas. तो ऐसे नहीं है कि आप लोग अगर community partnership कर रहे हैं, NGO कर रहे हैं, ऐसी नहीं है कि आप you are in some other area. It doesn't necessarily mean that you should not send a proposal to a company, because a company in the future might get into your area that you are specialized in. So this is what is emerging. Shomitra, you are the CEO of a consulting company, and you have the vantage point of looking at multiple sectors. Here we are concentrated in the manufacturing sector. So from your vantage point of being a consultant and serving your clients in multiple sectors, what is your idea of how you classify CSR operations in the country generally? What is large scale for you in terms of impact and the amount of spend? What is medium scale for you in terms of impact and amount of spend? And what is small scale for you in terms of, again, impact and spend? So if you could just deliberate on this point.
Thank you, Amit. First of all, namaskar and good morning. Well, to hear about the kind of spends is good, but to be very frank, when Brigadier Williams spoke about impact, that's what interests us more. Not because it's a line of operation for us, but also because we are passionate about to see what impact. We have seen billions of dollars being spent and not making the kind of impact that it has. I do not want to start with a very old saying, but if billions could change lives, then Africa wouldn't be Africa what it is today. So we are very sure that the currency does not change life, the intent behind the currency and the implementation that makes the impact. I completely, to start with, I'll come to your large scale, medium scale. We've never thought of it. That's a very innovative question. You put me into a very tight spot.
I'm sorry.
But I'll travel around it and I'll get it.
Intention is not to put
Well,
any of
that's
you in a tight spot.
Absolutely. So, one of the things that we study, and I'm coming from that sense of study, is the fact that a lot of corporations at a pre-2013 era. So in CSR evolution, we see two eras. One is post-2013 era, when we have started gathering many more times in a year than what we used to. Thankfully to a lot of institutions, but this is particularly of interest because when it is coming from an academic or a research institution, it interests us more because then we are talking substance here. So the evolution of CSR has been quite predated 2013, and the impact that they have been doing have been very focused on, because I strongly feel that, and this will lead to my question of large scale and medium scale, is the fact that a lot of companies voluntarily, since they were doing it by their own will, one is the conviction level was very high, and the intent was very organic. It was not pushed upon. Right. I am completely in favor of the new legislation which has come, but that's another, I think, that you have debated on yesterday. My whole issue is that, even if you look at the compliance, they're still learning. It is also evolving. But how does the compliance ensure impact? It does not. Right. One of the most beautiful things that I observed from this panel is when you have a manufacturing unit and when you are affecting a localized environment, and we have been strongly advocating it. These are large companies that we are talking about. We forget the majority component of this Indian economy that is running in, and that's the SMEs. Right. If you look at the SMEs, and Ashwini will actually appreciate because of his experience in cluster development, that they actually work under clusters. The SMEs have typically got their identified line of work and a cluster which is focusing on one component. The workforce of the SME clusters and now around the SEZs that you find, if you focus on, you will see a lot of localized geography and demographic similarity.
I just want to clarify, Shobhitra, correct me if I'm wrong. Mr. Chakravarti, you बोल रहे हैं कि SME, small and medium size enterprises, तो छोटे और medium enterprises, और ये जो बोल रहे हैं cluster, मतलब a group of small and medium sized companies come together.
That's right.
Yeah. Please carry on.
So I'll continue.
Yeah.
So the point of consideration here is that these companies often don't find a place in the large scale gathering. But if you look at, for example, Jay's group, I'm talking about the entire Jindal group. If you look at Asian Paints, I'm sure they are involved with hundreds of SMEs as suppliers to them.
Sure.
Right. When these SMEs get together and make an impact on a localized environment, with respect to, I won't call it CSR, I would call them voluntarily what they want to do. And if they can affect the local environment, then however, by the industry standard, their scale are medium and small, but by CSR standards, their impact is large. And this is where the line gets very, very precise. That large scale companies can do a lot of initiatives which are focused on exhibition. There are some groups like the Jindal startups who have been working ages before the 2013 so-called revolution of CSR in India, as it is believed. But they have been working in their own segments and keeping it to themselves and looking at impact largely. They haven't been going public, as I must accept with it. The only concern now is, that what we are seeing now is companies like these are now partnering with their suppliers with respect to affirmative action, which is also, I feel, a very important part of any CSR movement, and with respect to the localization of the global economy, if I can put it rightly, is the fact that you need to get into differently able friendly environment, equal workplace ethics for women, which is obviously now in news for all the wrong sort of reasons, but for the right reasons I'm speaking about. You look at affirmative action as a core issue in CSR, and then you look at how industries like these, by their manifolds of investment and millions of dollars that they invest, if they even can enforce it, I would say enforce, because they have the power to enforce, because they're sitting on the top of the board. If they can enforce it through their suppliers or through the medium and the small scale industry, right to the localized environment, you will see there's a manifold increase in the kind of impact. Kahin guna zyada impact you will see on ground. That is what I call is a small scale investment but a large scale impact. Fantastic. But for me, philosophically, if you ask me, as Ashwini pointed out, there is a malnourished child, and if I am able to bring her or him out of that malnourishment cycle, it may be a small investment but a huge impact. You set up a life, and that's what we study as impact. And then, coming from a different school of thought, it tells me that we don't align with this directly proportional relationship of amount of investment to amount of impact. Sometimes it goes inverse. You won't realize, right? And coming from my operational background is the fact that we are fortunate enough to actually work, and we are potentially going to work with them very soon. This month itself we are starting it. When we get to go and understand the need. And there is a very, very typical concept, a thin line, which is a real need and a felt need. So, a lot of these proposals, a lot of these propositions which are actually submitted to these guys are actually based on felt needs. And even today, because I sit on a lot of boards where we evaluate proposals which are submitted, I'll tell you more than 90%, and this is with some sort of responsibility that I can say, more than 90% proposals are not backed by a real need assessment. So one of the things that has started happening bad is the fact that, our secondary research has started taking place of primary research. You can never, ever beat primary research when it comes to human involvement. You cannot do, for example, these companies will never launch a product based on secondary research. They will do multiple piloting projects and they will get into. So these are the guys who are actually going to come into social sector. So Ashwini, Brigadier Williams, Akshita will come with their framework in their head. They will suddenly not step into CSR podium and say, well, today I am not a person from the corporation, today I am from the development sector. No, they are not. And I think this is where the private sector is going to come with its expertise. They're going to make sure that there are real frameworks, there are implementable frameworks, and I think if we can adapt to some of them, phenomenal impact, phenomenal impact. You don't enter a project unless and until you assess this project is really needed or it is needed only for fame.
Excellent. With that, many thanks, Shavitra, for your sterling perspective. यहाँ पे जो बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग ये डिस्कशन हो रहा है, आप लोग देख सकते हैं कि we have 3 manufacturing sector CSR heads, CSR senior managers. We looked at the patterns, we looked at the commonalities. यहाँ पे एक consultant है who looks at a wide variety of proposals. 2 most important points here कि हम जो कल से भास्कर चैटर्जी जो बताए कि अकेले तो हम डेवलपमेंट की सॉल्यूशंस नहीं निकाल सकते. So इसीलिए कॉर्पोरेट सोशल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी लॉ बनाया गया, क्योंकि कंपनीज जो है, इन लोग जो आपके सामने बैठे हुए हैं, इन लोग फंड कर रहे हैं 40 लाख करोड़, 7 करोड़, 70 करोड़. मिस्टर चक्रवर्ती जो बताए थे कि each one of these large group companies like the Jindal Group companies, Asian Paint Group companies, इनकी कई thousands, maybe sometimes hundreds of thousands इनकी suppliers होते हैं. तो यहाँ पे हम partnership के बारे में we can't just talk about partnership between the company directly and only with the community implementation partner, आपकी organization. We are also talking about partnerships between the suppliers, between one small company and one large company. So this is another dimension of partnership जो यहाँ पे आ रहे हैं. और मिस्टर चक्रवर्ती जो बता रहे थे
कि एक कंपनी, जिंदल ग्रुप कंपनी, एशियन ग्रुप कंपनी, what they singularly can't do. हम जो बता रहे हैं कि हम अकेले नहीं कर सकते, but if they can influence all their suppliers to work together in partnerships and to leverage their capabilities, मतलब कि अपने अपने जो strengths हैं, इनको ये easily derive कर सकते हैं कि आप लोग ये हम standard set कर रहे हैं, ये ऐसे impact होना चाहिए, ऐसे need assessment होना चाहिए, हम लोग चलिए मिल के एक साथ काम करते हैं, जो सप्लायर जो है, कैन यू इमेजिन कि इम्पैक्ट कितना मल्टीप्लाइड हो जाए?
To give you an example from one of my previous
Please,
organizations.
please,
In one of my
example
previous
please.
organizations,
Ji.
what we did is we tied up with all the petrol pump owners. We were into in oil and gas, so we tied up with all the petrol pump owners, and we said, okay, here is a voucher system. You will have greater footfall on your petrol station. And there's a certain discount that we will try to build up into your billing cycle. So you have a voucher, and everybody who comes and gives this voucher to you will be provided the entire testing facility, diagnostic facility at your petrol station. All that you have to do is you have to put up a placard, you have to throw some pamphlets around, and the footfall is going to build up more revenues for you, and we are going to make sure that the health status of people that gets captured. I can't tell you the number of data points we could get in a matter of 1 week campaign, and that helped us in designing a lot of health programs, especially around non-communicable diseases in that region, in a matter of 15 days. So that kind of tells you shared value kind of a thing.
So ये सब यहाँ पे पैनल मेंबर्स जो बोल रहे हैं, करेक्ट मी इफ आई एम रॉन्ग, इसी की मतलब है शेयर्ड वैल्यू. तो हमारे बड़े बड़े MBA डिग्रीज नहीं करना पड़ेगा. सो इन दिस काइंड ऑफ पैनल, ये हमारे जो एजुकेशन मिल रही है यहाँ से कि इन लोग ऑपरेशनली जो कर रहे हैं, शेयर्ड वैल्यू क्या है, हार्वर्ड यूनिवर्सिटी की किताब नहीं पढ़ना पड़ेगा. तो यही शेयर्ड वैल्यू है कि when a large company cooperates in partnership with the suppliers and scales up the impact and finds new needs in different communities and basically measures the impact of the communities who are in dire need for certain social intervention projects. फिर आप लोग आ जाते हैं, फिर आप लोग proposals देते हैं, and then you together we impact and development. तो अभी we will now move. Sure, absolutely.
So, like Soumitra shared, definitely on the SMEs and corporates coming together. I have one more point of corporates coming together themselves within the industrial area. So, what's happening, and it's definitely over the year of experience, what we are seeing is that since in an industrial area, and most of the corporates are trying to do CSR to begin with around their factories, a lot of initiatives are getting repeated by different corporates for the same beneficiaries. At the same time, there is no clear-cut understanding of which all corporates are doing what initiatives and how many beneficiaries are getting the repeated benefits. So in a way, I know, like, one of the locations I have to say, I know that there is a particular, there's a village where each beneficiary would be getting the health checkup at least thrice a year. Like, we don't get it once a year, they get thrice a year, which I don't think is that beneficial anyway. So, and that's where a request to all of you is that you are the right people who are working with multiple corporates in that area. For corporates to be too open, coming together, aligning their goals still is a journey. And I'm sure that the way it's in our heads, in all the corporates' heads, and slowly it's coming in the mainstream. But to openly share, okay, which corporates are there, what are they doing, what is their initiative, making them meet together, aligning their initiatives so that there can be manifold impacts of the same initiatives than the repeated initiatives happening across.
Can I?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, totally.
Akshata, your points are great. It's the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
It's a very big challenge. I'm just saying Kalinganagar. Kalinganagar, I think, is the hub of steel and power. There are 13 large corporates: Tata Steel, Tata Power, Jindal Stainless, Neelachal Ispat, Visa Steel. All the big players are there. We tried that. Why can't we just talk together? I mean, a major thing like environment. I mean, I really shudder to think 10 years down the line, when all the plants are ticking because this is all are green or brown. when all are taking, what will happen to the environment? What will happen to Brahmani River? Everybody's taking water from there. You know, but when we start talking together, excuse me, a great idea, thank you. So it's a good thing. We've been trying to propagate this, and I certainly hope in not too long a time frame that people will talk together and start developing the projects, sharing each other's expertise and a domain, right? Second thing I also wanted to share with you is coming a little back on the spend piece.
Sure.
The old corporations, the larger corporations have been doing CSR. In our case, I'll just tell you, it was in red, it's still in red. That is, I'm not talking about, there are no profits. It's a loss because it's a greenfield project. You have invested so much on it, so it'll take a couple of years when you start making profits. That 2% piece, when we talk about, didn't make a difference to Jindal Group. Because you're spending in any case much more than what you're supposed to be spending. You don't have to spend at all on CSR. But we've been spending because that's part of the DNA of Mr. O.P. Jindal, founder of the entire group. So I'm just saying that, again qualifying and re-emphasizing the point which even Sumitra alluded to and I had mentioned, is quality. After all, they are your customers. You are there, and that takes me to my background of the army. In the army, we don't have to spend it all in the community. I mean, you are there to protect the border, you're there to protect the environment, you're there to protect. But I'll share examples with you unless you realize that you are there because of the community. You don't really are supposed to be there because you won't get the information, you won't get the input, you can't act. And that's made, I think, a lot of sense on some Bhavana projects, on various projects, on human development projects along the border areas. And that's the background that I came over here. The industry has also gone into Orissa, to Jharkhand, and to the remote parts. Unless you work with the communities. One day lockout in your company means millions of dollars gone. And that's where you can say, we want to quantify as to whether this small spend or investment in the community has made an impact. Thank you.
अब देखिए ब्रिगेडियर विलियम इतना महत्वपूर्ण, इतना significant point he made just now. He's talking about values, and so he's taking his example of being an army man, being a soldier all these years, and he's talking about service. तो यहाँ पे तो हम CSR development के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, यहाँ पे तो हम competition के बारे में बात ही नहीं करना चाहिए. तो फिर partnerships इतना difficult फिर भी क्यों हैं? तो हम ये conclave जो है 3 दिन का, this is dedicated to developing partnerships. Looking at the challenges, and yet this conversation is coming from the funders, from large-scale companies, and also a consultant's vantage point of looking at many other sectors. और दूसरा चीज आप लोग please note कीजिए कि we are also trying to find out what is driving, why is partnership necessary. मतलब ये partnership सब बोल रहे हैं, SDG सब बोल रहे हैं, because why is it necessary? एक चीज ये very clear है हमारे सामने अभी, from the people who fund, from the people who assess the impact, कि हम duplication avoid करते हैं. 10 करोड़ आप एक कंपनी दे रहे हैं, 12 करोड़ एक ही project, एक ही beneficiary के ऊपर. Why not combine that? Maybe the total cost will also come down, individual cost will also come down, and the beneficiary impact will go up. Number one ये है. और एक बात जो Mr. Chakravarti बताया कि scaling up the impact. This is another driver of partnership. पार्टनरशिप जरूरत है इम्पैक्ट स्केल अप करने की, क्योंकि हम डेवलपमेंट के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं. अभी देखिए अब 4 साल इतनी कंपनीज फोकस कर रहे हैं, पैसा आ रहे हैं डेवलपमेंट सेक्टर में 28,000 करोड़ 30,000 करोड़ में, वी डोंट नो द टोटल अमाउंट, मगर उनकी तो क्यूमुलेटिव इम्पैक्ट मुझे किसी को पता नहीं है. तो this is basically scaling up the impact. How do we measure the impact on a cumulative basis on the national development footprint? So now with this very nice discussion that we have started on, and I apologize from our side that all of us collectively, because their time is money for them, unfortunately, even though they're in the corporate sector, although they're in the development sector. I understand because I was in industry for about 10 years or so. So with my apologies, I'll get into the second question very quickly. So in terms of implementation, my question to each one of you, and we'll spend about just 5 minutes. In terms of implementation, how do you see a foundation of a company? Like Ashwini, you are the JSW Foundation. So what is the difference in the mode of CSR implementation between a direct corporate foundation and a company which implements through community organizations or NGOs?
See, I'll tell you, in our case, implementation are two processes. One is direct implementation by the company. We directly implement the projects because we've got our teams who are dedicated for this very purpose. So that's one piece because they are qualified and they've got the experience and they are from TIS or from XIS, XIMP, the works, as part of our CSR teams. The second thing is that everywhere we don't have the expertise. So we have to get engaged with partners, with NGO partners, with corporate partners also at times, who've got a specific domain and who are doing this kind of an activity. Like for example, initially I remember when we had partnered with Feedback Ventures, construction company. But they were working exclusively on, at that time, Swachh Bharat, equivalent. The name wasn't Swachh Bharat, it was total community-led sanitation. Yeah. So I'm just saying that there are partners like that that we actually do a thorough due diligence, then have a partnership. And I'm sure aap log jo yahan baithe hain, I don't go by just the top 100, I go sometimes who are never listed. Especially when we are talking about the grassroots work, which some of you have got brilliant ideas, brilliant execution abilities, and you've got the pulse of the community. So there are both these issues that we really work on, direct and indirect.
That's fantastic. Just to summarize, आप लोग और एक note कीजिए, जो यहाँ पे brilliant point आया है यहाँ से. So एक हमने बताया partnership की ज़रूरत scaling the impact है, और एक है to avoid duplication, and यहाँ पे expertise. So even if they have a direct implementation, सब expertise नहीं है. So when you are developing a proposal, remember what is your expertise, how you can position your expertise. Please.
I think Brigadier William touched upon a very important point,
Sure.
For us as a foundation, while we have people across all these remote locations where we are based, it's a fact that they tend to engage with the community on a daily basis. They get a lot of questions, but for them, perhaps they may not have the most optimum answers for those questions. And that's where the capability thing comes in, where fresh ideas come in. In JSW Foundation, how we've structured ourselves is that at the headquarters, there's one sectoral expert for each thing. And his or her task is to only make sure that they bring in the best practices, new innovations, and see where there can be a good connect at the location. So if some interesting model has come up on, say for example, health and nutrition, some checkup or something, can this be tested in some remote location? If it works, then we replicate it and multiply it and scale it up. Scaling, I think, is the biggest challenge for us when it comes to working with people, because I'll give you a typical example. I got a proposal for a particular location where this organization wants to solve eye problems in the entire taluka and taluka district. I don't know who is getting the close. So there are about 10 talukas in that district, and they believe that they are going to make this entire district cataract free by targeting one village, year 1, year 2, second village, year 3, so on and so forth. It looks very fantastic, some bites are very good. That the impact that you're looking at is cataract free. But I raised a question, I said, how can you make it cataract free? Because year 2, by the time you new people would be coming in your village 1 who would be having cataract. So it's like putting a carrot in front of a donkey with a stick attached to it, and the donkey keeps on running. I said we would never be able to achieve this target. So designing, and then they turn cold feet and they say, boss, but we cannot do more than this. So but why can't you partner with more organizations? Can you bring 5 more such organizations who can make this entire district cataract free in 1 year? If that's the kind of a scale you're looking at, then it's good to collaborate. But kind of satisfying ourselves by saying, okay, one fine day, one utopian day, we'll make it cataractory, and we continue on a never-ending task. I think that kind of metric doesn't drive us at all. So doing small little things, not thinking of scale, I think that's the biggest impediment in terms of partnerships. One very reputed organization which has got tremendous amount of experience in animal husbandry still wants to work in a space where they say, okay, we'll work with 50 farmers this year and another 50 farmers next year, and so on and so forth. Okay, so what is the context? How many farmers are there in that region? How many percentage of farmers are you going to impact by your work? It's minuscule 0.000 some percent. So if you're spending so much of money, resources and program design and everything, and you can't even make a dent in 20-30% of that, no point in doing that job. I think working subscale is a kind of a crime, if I can say it so. So that scale is important, and therefore you are fortunate that your people get health checkups done 3 times. We work in locations where the moment the public sector comes to know, okay, JSW is operating in this region, those villages are touch me not. Nobody cares about the school, nobody cares about the health, nobody cares about anything else. Now it's a very fancy idea. Oh, we've adopted so and so village, and I keep on reading it in the newspaper, and I keep on wondering. I said, why adoption is taking place? Has the government kind of given away? I mean, it's a public sector responsibility. And in boards, I'm telling you, we get these kind of difficult questions. So one of the board members says, why are you doing every time the same stuff? Repairing the roof and giving the furniture and repairing the floor, etc., etc. I said, yeah, I understand what you're saying. We want to do innovative things in education. We want to bring in computer education here. But the challenge is year one, when I go there, the principal tells me, please put the fencing around my school boundary. Wild animals come inside. I need furniture. My roof has been leaking for last 4 years. The Zilla Parishad is not listening to me. Can you fix it up? Okay, so we fix it up, believing that in year one, if we've done that, by year 2 or 3, we'll be able to bring in the kind of innovative inputs that we really want to bring in. Year 4, the roof is again leaking, the furniture has again broken down, the barbed wire fence has again gone down. So I think that's where convergence, for me, I think I look at a matrix. Government, NGOs, startups, if I may put in there, other corporates and ourselves. And again, look at a square matrix of this and see where can there be convergence. I mean, as foundations, sometimes we found that going and talking to government departments so that the 2 arms of the same government department can collaborate with each other, that itself is a challenge. So we should not be even talking about bilateral partnerships. To me, it's a multi-stakeholder partnership which is important. We are working with the Maharashtra government on village social transformation project, and one of our contributions is this only, that if I come to know of an organization which is good into inoculations, I connect him to the CEO of the VST. Please go and see. This is 1,000 villages of tribals where inoculation is a big challenge. Can you go and work there? I may not be financially contributing it, but I'm at least taking that idea to the right people. If I'm working there in that piece, can I bring in some more fresh element of thought in the discussions? I think partnerships begin from such small little things, and therefore time is over where we can talk about a donor-donee or a vendor-vending kind of a engagement that typically comes into your minds the moment you talk about CSR partnerships. I think it has to be a partnership where you bring in something on the table as a resource, and it's a wrong way of thinking to believe that corporates can only bring a pot of money onto the table. I think in terms of project management, in terms of project design, skill sets, and being very cutthroat about looking at data, I think those are the things that we bring to the table. So and sometimes it's more about the kind of partnerships that we have with organizations. The more we dig deeper, the more we engage with them on a more regular basis, more ideas come out from the same partner. I mean, ICRISAT is an example for me. We were just working on watershed with them. One fine day, 1 day discussion in their campus, and we realized that they can play a significant role in bringing in the traditional nutrition basket back into the tribal families. They also have expertise on nutrition. So now the work that we're doing on watershed and agriculture with them is also being complemented by them for nutrition support. So one organization which is your partner, which is understanding the entire scape of things there, can now bring in another fresh element. So it's not even about bringing in new partners. I would say even engaging with your partners deeply to find out what more they can bring onto the table, I think that's another way of looking at it.
This is fantastic, Ashwini. Just summarize, try to summarize in one point. Such wealth of wisdom. यहाँ पे जो बोल रहे हैं कि again we talked about what is driving the partnerships, right? Again I reiterate, scaling the impact. You know, this is being reiterated again and again. ये developmental goal आपका क्या है? What is the theory of change? And how do you basically find complementary skill sets? So यही बता रहे हैं कि सबकी specialization अलग-अलग है, सबकी competencies अलग-अलग है. So partnerships should be structured based on what each is bringing to the table. But the question is, how do you identify it? One way to identify is that if your proposals are perhaps absolutely dot on sharp, it gives the value proposition. आपकी expertise क्या है? आपकी relationship with the local community है? कि आपकी needs assessment में है? And ये जो अश्विनी जो बताए कि multi-stakeholder partnership. So this, we are not talking anymore about this one corporate fund giving the money. Multiple community organizations, the government programs, a consulting company like Mr. Chakravarti, different companies, like for example, we can talk about now a partnership happening between Asian Paints, JSW, and of course with the other group, JSL and Jindal companies, if they're working on the same jurisdictions. And Shobhitra, any other thoughts on?
See, when we go on the ground, there is a slight bit of confusion here. And I'm clear, you know, partnership is a persistent problem. Whether it's the industry, whether it's the government, and whether it's the civil society. In one typical case study, I'll tell you, the donors are also always not right. So we should be humble enough to accept that fact. Right?
Let's even not talk about ourselves as just donors.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So,
I mean, to me,
from
that
a
itself is a
perspective,
problem, that I'm a donor.
from a perspective is that if a giving organization always tends to think, you know, in a way that they actually know. I'll give you a small case study. With the same leading industry from the leading company from the packaging industry, we partnered on the same project based on the same need, relatively same need in two places. One is in Gautam Budh Nagar and the other one is in Malanpur in Hind. You know, in the Gautam Budh Nagar, you will see a phenomenal project going on. Right? The same project with even a more established partner did not work in Malanpur. And you know what happened? I'll tell you. They actually, in the Malanpur plant, was actually acquired by a different company. Overnight, within a month, the new acquisition company said we want to wrap it up because our area of focus is something else. And the project was shunted in midway to the extent that harvesting structures were also half made but they were left like this. If you go back to that area, for example, now Ashwini wants to enter into that area and he wants to forge a partnership. You know, as a first moving company, I've already made his job very difficult. And this is a peculiar problem we face. You know, and especially with industries which are involved in R&R. There's a huge amount of resistance. Communities don't allow us. They don't allow us to carry out impact studies. Our teams actually stay outside the village for legal law enforcement support for days together before they can enter. Because they sometimes can take a very violent turn. You know, so my only suggestion with respect to partnership is that the givers have an advantage because they can enforce a certain amount of thing. And I also must accept that, you know, the civil society is equally against partnerships. Is equally. I'm not absolving the state of its responsibility. Right? Coming to Ashwini's point, the problem with India is not the fact, let's take the health sector. The problem is not with respect to facilities. The problem is with respect to access. You can have a brilliant facility, but if it takes a student to travel 25 kilometers up and down, you might have a global school, but if there are no roads, you have given no access. The problem is, you need to work with the civil society, not because of the fact that you can't implement. You can operationalize a road and get it done. But the problem is, even after you exit a project, ideally I always am an advocate of the fact that the private sector or the industry should treat CSR as an investment, and they should have an entry point and exit point. Because if the community does not own up the project, how long will you sustain over a period of time? And that will limit your area of impact. You need to diversify. Come in with the seed fund. I would like to treat it as a seed fund. Build up, become a medium sector venture partner, and then exit. When you exit, you have to be sure that your program has been implemented in such a way that the community has owned up. And if the community has owned up, you have done your job brilliant. And then the community takes it over. There are some phenomenal projects. Ashwini has worked with you, and he would know there are phenomenal projects where people come in and they actually take ownership and the private sector exits. Then you leave a mark behind. But if you tend to think, that I'll keep, and the civil society is quite a bit responsible for it. Because I'll tell you what, the civil society gets into a habit of understanding that this is how it is going to be for ages. Majority of the proposals of the civil society are not based on an understanding that even if there is an X partner today, there will be X plus partners tomorrow, but the impact Y also has to increase and diversify. They try to stay limited because they are only thinking about my administrative norm. So ideally, I'll give you a small example. Ideally, if you look at any proposal, and these guys might be flooded, Mr. Williams might be flooded with these proposals, ideally you will see when the first proposal comes in, the administrative budget is about 35 to 40%. Then Mr. Williams gets very hard on it, and it's like, go to hell. And then you start see it reducing. And ultimately, I'll tell you, the civil society also comes down to proposals where 15 to 17%, considering salaries are an incompetent component of it. But then you start developing that mistrust. Why did they present 40% at first place? I ask a lot of questions. That if you can implement this project at 15% administrative budget, then why the hell did you at all apply for a 40% administrative flat? And then that mistrust, leads to a delay, to a stagnation of the project. So I would say partnership evolution means, I agree with Ashwini on a certain aspect that finance is not always the benchmark of partnership. Sweat equity, intellectual equity is also and should be equally regarded. But how many civil society organizations will appreciate Ashwini? I am doubtful. If Ashwini goes and says, I will not give you money, but I will give you ideas. You won't see 5% of the people staying in the room.
6 months and I would say 20 iterations with the vice president of that organization, and they could not figure out how they would like to redesign.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm trying to tell you is, और ये सबके लिए, civil society, सरकार, निजी क्षेत्र सबके लिए. If you want to scale up in India, you're talking 130 crore people who need an impact. Whether he stays in the uptown houses of Mumbai or in the Akola district in a remotest place, we need to be touched by that impact. If you cannot forge a partnership, keep trying. You will become another African. Partnership is the way. Now the industry does it, civil society does it, the government does it, sooner or later. Last point. If you look at the best models across the globe, they're always partnership based. They are never single organization based. One civil society, one industrial partner, and one government agency making a deterrent impact on at a huge level is never possible. You're looking at different demographic and geographical diversity. You need to partner. So sooner is the better.
Thank you, Shobita. Thank you very much. यहाँ पे और एक चीज़ आप note कीजिए before we move on to the final question, because the panel members are pressed for time now, and for our fall training. कि यहाँ पे there's another driver of partnerships, which Chakravarti is talking. Very important to understand the goals and the vision and the mission of the funding. Where पैसा कहाँ से आ रहा है? क्योंकि वहीं से पैसा आ रहा है. And that vision and the mission and the goals, if they change, problematic situation. और एक चीज़ है कि trust. पहले से ये trust based relationship अगर नहीं होगा तो partnership breakdown करने का बहुत ही संभावना है. So we have to be concentrating on trust. And also what we need to also remember, why has basically TIS and Jindal got together to develop this conclave focusing on partnership? Mr. Chakravarti talks about the civil society, the corporate funder, the state. TIS is known for their work with the development sector. Jindal Global University is a young university but we are known for our understanding of corporate law, for corporate strategy. A lot of the faculty members in Jindal has worked for industry. So this type of partnership is almost like a match made in heaven in order to develop capacity. So we are trying to think and forge strategies how to do this together. So आप जो बताएं Mr. Chakrabarti कि not only for the operational side but also for the capacity building skill side. Okay, now with this, final question is very quickly and also in your own interests and matters. One quick example of a partnership that hasn't worked and reason. Why do you think it hasn't worked? Because we have to learn from failures.
Very quickly, because we've got Russia also. Partnership did not work. No names. Big organization. Great reports. Great presentation. Went for a partnership for an education. Unfortunately, they did not have the adequate experience at the ground level. And I had to withdraw for 2 years. The other example is partnering with a very local organization, in Orissa especially, because there is community connect. They did brilliantly, nobody ever heard of them, besides of course in the small pocket where we were working, and they did a brilliant job. So I think I'm not giving you sharing any names, but I did make a mention right at the beginning. Due diligence is important. Sometimes we also fail in our due diligence. And it's not just the top 100, it's the bottom 100 also maybe equally. That's what. Thank you.
I think I'll not say any partnerships have failed, but I would say many of them had a very limited scope. And since they did not have the appetite to scale up, I think for me that was in a sense a failure. That they were not ready to scale up, they were not keen to partner with their fellow organizations. I think for me that was a failure. In terms of, because the first design itself was foolproof, everything was fine, whatever was agreed upon was delivered, so I'll not call it as an implementation failure. But scaling up itself not being possible of a good thing that you've already done, to me that also is a failure. In terms of successful partnerships, I think there are a large number of them. At this moment, I think what comes to my mind is the partnership that we are doing with ICRISA. Working across different geographies, looking at new ideas, trying to pull in more and more resources together. They giving us suggestions, ideas, help, connects, even for things which are not a part of the matrix agreed upon. I think that's a sign of a mature relationship. So I think, yeah, in a sense, that's something which has really worked.
Thank you.
So, in our case, I would say the partnerships which haven't worked per se, and maybe in the initial 3-4 months it felt like that they're working fabulously well, but later we realized no, not at all, because there was a huge difference in what was presented to us in paper and what was actually happening on our grounds. And not to again name the organization, but these are like really big players in the region. And as a partner, as a corporate who really wants to get involved in the work and just not be a donor, we definitely get deeper into, like for me, this Delhi visit is also 2 of the planned locations visits, which I do every month. So for an organization like that, you just can't be working with fancy reports. You really need to have the same thing on the ground also. And as a matter of fact, once the trust breaks, after that, no matter what you do, it's really difficult to work as a partner together. So 2 of the big organizations we have stopped working. Other reason of doing that is the huge admin cost. So one of the big partners, again, who's like pan-India present, we started working with. And as a company, initially we did not have that much of understanding of breaking down the entire line item component and things, but slowly we are also maturing in this entire social space, and we're bringing the corporate expertise in line item, timeline, share the budget, break the budget. That's why we realized that the people who are actually delivering for that organization on the ground, they are volunteers. There's nothing which is going to them anyway, who are delivering the impact. However, people are sitting in regional offices, state offices, 40% of the project cost is for their salaries. So no offense there, but somewhere it just sounds very irrational. So like Mr. Williams has shared, so now what another learning is that there are very small pocket NGOs who have got brilliant project. Somewhere they can't scale, somewhere they are not present across, somewhere they don't have to corporate people at the top who are running it, so they can't talk to polish per se, but their idea and intent is like brilliant. So what we are trying to do is to have them, help them build our projects, so that then we can implement with local hands and legs across locations through local implementing partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashish. And the final word, the owners of the burden of the final word, Dr. Chakravarti.
As far as the TIS and the JGU partnership, you said that having this kind of amalgamation is nothing less than heaven. I have a small point. Everyone wants to reach to heaven, no one wants to die. And that's the problem. We all want our resources, we want the projects, everything. But I think when it comes to one due diligence, both internal and external due diligence, and with respect to understanding what is real need, and because of the due diligence, you will also come to know what is the real and the felt need. And I think my ending statement would be with the fact that, as prospective donors or potential donors who can put forward a policy framework, I would actually bring in an amalgamation between Ashwini's thought and Akshita's thought, and actually how it works. If Ashwini decides and Akshita decides that, for example, we have 15 NGOs working across smaller pockets making an impact, I stand as Ashwini as a great chance to make them partner under my name and start this program at a large scale. That opportunity is not been encashed to me. I am just focusing as an industry on my 15. So if I can get those 15, because these 15 will hardly come together. They will not. But if you are standing at a vantage point and you want to get them together, phenomenal. You've created a partnership, and once you taste the nectar of partnership, you will never go back. The only problem is we hesitate. No one wants to die.
Absolutely. Fantastic. So that was Ashwini, Dr. Chakravarti said, that was Akshita, and now Amit comes in, finally 2 minutes, all 3 A's. Not to disrespect other alphabet, we just summarize. आप ये note कीजिए कि failures, first is lack of ground level experience. Very important. We have to demonstrate that as a community organization. Second, capacity, not having enough capacity to scale up. Unwillingness to scale up. So when you put in a proposal, we got to imagine how we scale up. Multiple jurisdictions, we need to demonstrate that. Proof of concept to the funder. Third, difference between plan and implementation. हम एक plan दे रहे हैं और implementation of दूसरे रास्ते में चल रहे हैं. Breaks down trust and creates a terrible mess. Ends up with a failure. और एक है huge administrative costs. तो हम proposal बनाएंगे, so we have to be also a trust building exercise. 30, 40, 50% are just on salaries, overhead costs, and not on the project itself, on the social intervention, whose impact needs to be measured. So no. And finally, of course, due diligence. So we've looked at from this very, very good panel, brilliant panel, we've looked at the patterns. What makes partnerships work? What drives partnerships? 4-5, just 4-5. An entire textbook has been covered in about 1 hour. And finally, we have looked at certain 4-5 principles which are at the root of failure of partnerships. And the most important thing that each one of them, and as Dr. Chakravarti very eloquently put it, partnerships, once you experience the nectar of partnerships, particularly in development, that needs to be documented, the story told well. It needs to be taught in universities. And this is where Jindal Global University and TIS can come together. We need to document these case studies. We need to document the photographs. We need to look at the multi-stakeholder images. We need to basically tell the story right. And this is not being done in our country, although about 30,000 crores are coming in. And we need good communications people for that. So with this, from the bottom of my heart as a moderator with all my deficiencies, what we haven't been able to learn is not because of them, it's because of the fact that I have not managed to translate and articulate what their wisdom. So with my apologies, it's bottom of my heart, a very, very deep and a sincere thanks to each one of you, Brigadier Raju Williams, Ashwini Saxena, Akshita Shukla, and Dr. Sharvich Chakravarti. And with that, we end this panel, and we'd like to call upon my colleague and partner, Rohan Sharma, to basically now give some felicitate you for very, very humbly, in a very humble fashion.